Hey guys, this is Music Tech Help Guy, and welcome to part 7 of my Music Theory for Producers course. In this video, we're going to talk about minor scales and minor key structure. In the previous video, we talked about major scales and major key structure, so I highly recommend you go back and watch that video before you watch this one, because we're going to jump right into it. And in the previous video, we had talked about whole steps and half steps, and that is some knowledge that you need to understand to understand this video to start. So the minor scale can be constructed by following the interval pattern of a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step, whole, whole. So whole, half, whole, half, whole, as opposed to the major scale, which was whole, half, whole, half. So we have a slightly different structure here, but the exact same thing that we did in the previous video can be done here to find minor scales. Now keep in mind, just a little side note to keep on the back burner, the minor scale that we're going to be forming in this video is the natural minor scale. There's actually 3 separate forms of the minor scale, which we'll talk about in a future video. There's natural minor, harmonic minor, and melodic minor. In this video, we'll just be addressing the natural minor scale. So like with the major scale, the easiest minor scale to learn is the A minor scale, and that's because it is the only minor scale that has only white keys, no sharps, no flats. So it's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A. Very simple. So let's go into our logic session here. So we have there's A minor starting on A2. So again, that pattern for this is whole, half, whole, half, whole. So let's figure out that pattern using A minor. So starting on A here, we have our tonic note. If we go up a whole step, we get B. If we go up a half step, we get C. If we go up a whole step, we get D. Another whole step, we get E. A half step, we get F. A whole step, we get G. And then the last whole step, we get A. So again, whole, half, whole, half, whole. The other example that I give on the worksheet here is C minor, which is C, D, E flat, F, G, A flat, B flat, C. Let's figure this one out. So again, whole, half, whole, half, whole. So starting on C here, a whole step above C is D. A half step above D is E flat. A whole step above E flat is F. Now I'm going to stop here for a moment because we talked about how to know whether to use a flat or a sharp. How do we know to use E flat here as opposed to D sharp? Well, when we figured out the second note of the scale, which was D, we know that we can't use D sharp because D is already used in the scale as a natural note. So we have to use the alternate and harmonic, which is E flat. So C, D, E flat, F. So whole, half, whole. A whole step above F is G. A half step above G is A flat. A whole step above A flat is B flat. A whole step above B flat is C. So whole, half, whole, half, whole. So there's your C minor scale. Let's look at a scale in minor that has sharps in it. Let's take a look at E minor. So here's the note E. Let's go up a whole step, which is F sharp. A half step, which is G. Now again, how do we figure out that this is F sharp instead of G flat? Well, the third note is G natural, so we can't use G twice. We don't want to have E, G flat, G. We'd rather have E, F sharp, G. So we can go alphabetically. So E, F sharp, G. A whole step above G is A. A whole step above A is B. A half step above B is C. A whole step above C is D. And a whole step above D is E. There's our whole scale. And there's E minor. Now, just like with the major scales that I showed off in the last video, we can construct any minor scale using this whole half whole method, and then we can add in thirds the intervals above the bottom note or the root note of each chord to construct each of the chords for the scale or for the key. So for instance, in A minor, if we take the bottom note of each chord here, or the bottom note is basically the notes of each of the notes in the scale, we end up with A minor, B diminished, C major, D minor, E minor, F major, G major, and A minor. So there's a little bit different chord configuration, much like there's a different interval configuration from the major scales. But the thing to remember, and this is the same thing I said about the major scales and the major chords, or major key chords, is that the pattern of chords is identical for every single major scale. So for minor scales, it's the same thing. The pattern of chords for every single minor key or every single minor scale is identical. So we end up with minor, diminished, major, minor, minor, major, major, minor. So for C minor down here, we have minor, diminished, major, minor, minor, major, major, minor. The only thing we have to remember is, again, in the key of C minor down here, we have E flat, we have A flat, and B flat. So every single E flat, A flat, and B flat for all of these chords in C minor has to be flatted. And the same goes for any sharped key. Any key that has sharps in it, we're going to want to make sure that we add sharps for all of the notes within that scale that has sharps. Again, these are just two examples. We'll get a little bit deeper into scales and chords in the future videos. But again, if you remember the whole half whole pattern, you can figure out any minor scale above any tonic note, and then you can go and figure out every single chord within any minor key, at least when we're dealing with, again, natural minor, because there are two other forms of minor that we'll get into later. So what I did off screen was I created just a simple arrangement of one of my songs. This is the song Fearless, which was my EDM pop track that I used for an EDM pop tutorial series. The original song is not in A minor, but I transposed it to A minor. And just for a little more clarity here, I actually added the lyrics to it, just so you can sort of follow along. And I also added chord symbols to the chords. And I kept the chords super, super simple as opposed to the Eddie Money example I showed in the last video. There's no extra notes, it's just straight up triads. So just chords with 3 notes in them and nothing else. So just as a reference, I will go ahead and play the original track from YouTube. And this is from the hook or build-up section of the song. So that's the original song. I can't remember what key it's in. I think it was in B minor or G minor. This is just transposed to A minor just for ease of use for our musical example. And much like the Eddie Money example I did in the last video, the chords are very simple. The chords that I used for the song are essentially A minor, F, G, and E minor. So it's A minor, F, G, and E minor. Again, only 4 chords from the entire key. So again, you can create a cool sounding hook with just 4 chords. So let's play our transposed up to A minor version here. Now, likewise, if I wanted to transpose all of this up to another key, let's say A minor just sounds a little low to me, and it kind of does. I could just select all of these notes. The great thing about working within a DAW is I can just select all these notes, and in Logic, I just hold Option and press up, and I can transpose this up to another key. So maybe I want to go up 2 steps to B minor. So let's give this a listen, although the chords are not going to hold up anymore. They're going to be different chords. The chords that are actually in this are going to be B minor, G major, A major, and F sharp minor. So here's the transposed version up in B minor now. And there you go. So that is minor scales and keys and minor scale and key structure. In the next video, we will move on to figuring out major and minor scales using a tool, a very, very useful tool, one of the most useful tools in music theory, called the circle of fifths. And the circle of fifths will tell us exactly how many sharps or flats are in every single major or minor key, major or minor scale, and also will help aid in the creation of chord progressions. We'll also talk about scale degrees and Roman numerals and things like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video on minor scale and key structure, and thanks for watching.